We had to start from 51. Yesterday we did till 50. This we did.
Sorry, I was talking on mute so far. I'm not sure why. Okay, let's begin now. Did you use automated test tools on your project? Anyone?
I have actually never got exposure on that.
Yeah, so you can simply say no. Or you can mention that I personally have not used them, but our team use automation tools like Selenium or Jenkins, and I'm not sure what exactly they used to do. That's a little technical for me, so I have not used it. You can simply say, and that's okay. Right?
Yeah.
All right. What is team's velocity?
So the amount of work that the team can take in a sprint, or can complete it in a sprint.
All right. Anyone else? Put some passion on your answer. Right?
Yeah. I was just defining it. Yeah.
Anyone? Ankita, Shivam, Lopa, Precious.
A team's velocity is defined about how much of user story they are able to take on an average of 5 or 6 sprint, and what is their focus factor on that particular sprint. That is what the velocity we carry on.
All right. Anyone else? Still, I'm not getting the good answer.
Yes, so velocity is something like the how many story points we have delivered. It's not about how much we have taken, but how much we have delivered, and we calculate it I mean, when we are talking about velocity, it is always about the average velocity. So, so reference will be from 5 to 6 sprints. So, how many story points we have delivered? So, this is something about team's velocity.
Great. Yeah. So how many story point historically we have completed over recent past couple of sprints? That's a rolling average of completed story points, which give us an indications of our capability to complete in our future sprint. Right? It's always a team metrics. It's not a metrics that we should compare from one team to another team. Are we good? All right. Okay. Let's go to the next question. Yeah.
No, please, could you explain one more time, please?
Okay. Velocity is a average of total completed story points of recent past couple of sprints, maybe 5 to 10 sprint or 6 to 10 sprints. Total completed. That gives us an indications of future predictability. Is a predictability measure. It's not a comparison matrix between teams. It's specific to the teams. Right?
Yes.
All right. How do you manage sick leaves in a sprint to make sure you still achieve the sprint goal? I think this is we already talked about earlier, right? If one person suddenly go on leave, and what will happen. So we are not discussing this one once again. Let's talk about the next question. When and how you do estimations in Scrum?
We do estimation before the sprint planning, that is during the product backlog refinement session. And when and how you do a estimation, we do a estimation based on story points, and through with the help of a planning poker we define the estimation to our user stories.
Okay, makes sense. Anyone else?
Estimations we do within, I mean, within the when the sprint is running. Also, sometimes we do estimations for our upcoming sprints. Just added points, whatever Ankita
You're
has told.
talking about
That.
story point estimation, right?
Yes, yeah.
So if the sprint is running, so when and how you do estimations in Scrum, if you say when the sprint is running, then also we do estimation, not for the committed stories in the sprint, but for the future
Huh.
sprint. You can
Yes,
mention
yes.
it in that way. Otherwise, it may portray different meaning.
Okay,
So
okay. Yeah.
you can mention that we do most of the time in backlog refinement. That's one of the part of our definition of ready, and we use a technique called planning poker to estimate estimate our stories. We also do sometimes a very high priority story came up during the sprint planning, which was not refined earlier. So we do couple of stories refinement if we are planning to commit in the sprint during the sprint planning as well. And how you do estimations, you can mention we follow a pattern called or techniques called planning poker, right? So they may ask, okay, can you please explain what is planning poker? So you should be able to explain what is planning poker is. Are we clear? Okay, what is the
In a
difference?
new Jira, in new Jira, we have that option and planning poker installed in the Jira tool itself. What is the online sites where we can go and play
In
planning
new
poker?
Jira, you have a planning poker installed.
Yeah, I have heard from a couple of people. They in the latest version of Jira, the planning poker is coming on the Jira tool itself. I've seen in my organization some Scrum Master was using it. I couldn't got a time to
Okay,
check with that.
I have not heard about that. That maybe come
Mm.
by some of the plugins, but I have not
Yes.
heard about that. Okay, but even you can go for many online tools. You can just search for planning poker. There are Android and iOS app also for doing planning poker. And I think Scatter Spoke, there is one site where you can do planning poker as well. I think so. Let me quickly check. I am missing SCAT.
That is cool.
Yeah, so
Status book
this,
retrospective.
yeah, so under that also, they have, I think they had something, I'm not exactly remember. They may change it to return products. Okay, this is starts up, no, not this one. There are, if you just search planning
I will.
poker tool, you will able to get okay, planning poker tool. Jira is also seeing Jira planning, that's a plugin. Okay. Okay. Yeah, but you can able to get, there are many marketplace, Agile poker for Jira or Scrum poker for Jira. There are marketplace, they are there. Planningpoker.com is also there. They also have integrated with Jira. So you can do that. It's not with Jira's core thing, but this is actually a plugin. And you can use that, but you don't need that, because whenever you are doing a planning poker as a Scrum Master, if you understand the concept of planning poker, you will be able to do it by yourself.
Yes, so we can ask them during teams also, team meeting. Okay, just send the, like how we did in Zoom, send it directly to me or something like that.
Yeah, so through chat window.
Yeah, through chat windows. We do not have to go through these online tool. If it could, if we do not have the plugins environment given by the organization, we have always have a workaround.
Right, exactly.
Okay, thank you.
All right, okay. So now can you tell me the difference between the planning poker and t-shirt sizing?
Planning poker, we use a Fibonacci series, which is like 1, 3, 5, 8, and 13 in terms of that. And t-shirt sizing, it is like it is represented as small, medium, large, extra large, and these are the sizing. And with that relative reference, we provide story points. But um, as far I am aware about, with these t-shirt sizing, again you have to compare it with the uh, Fibonacci series and put it across with the story points. So you have to compare it with one small size. If you are putting, like for an example, as 2 story points, and then medium might be 5 story points. So like that you have to do a relative sizing as well.
All right. Okay. Any other views? Anyone? What is the advantages of going for planning poker in story point estimation compared with t-shirt sizing? Lopa, Precious, Shivam.
Planning poker, the relative estimation gives us more, what to say, more accurate, not exactly accurate. The estimation should be better in planning poker compared to T sizing. So, and the planning poker here, as we are talking about the relative sizing, so yes, so. Even I'm not getting exactly what is the difference right now here, but if given a chance, planning poker is better than t-shirt sizing.
Yeah, see, both are relative sizing, t-shirt sizing and if story points. We can still do t-shirt planning. Planning poker is a technique, and t-shirt size is the number. So you can do Fibonacci series or t-shirt sizing, both using planning poker. But whenever this kind of question comes up, you can mention planning poker is an estimation technique. T-shirt sizing are the measurement unit. We can have story point or t-shirt sizing. There is a difference. We always prefer to go with story point sizing so that we can use those number in multiple mathematics or arithmetic, like sum them up, average them out, or take a percentage of that. That can easily happen with the numbers, which is not possible in t-shirt sizing. Right? Are we clear?
So
Yeah.
planning poker, we can use it through t-shirt sizing as well.
Yeah.
Like last time we did for Fibonacci series, instead of
Yeah.
we can
You
go
can
with
use t-shirt
t-shirt sizing.
sizing as well. But we need
Do we
to
have any other? Sorry.
other what? Other
Do
technique?
we have other techniques, or and like t-shirt sizing? Do we have other units also?
No, we have story point or t-shirt sizing. Techniques are there. We have, there is something called Delphi. Another is called Wildband Delphi. There is another one called complexity bucket. But those are different techniques. Most majorly used is planning poker.
Okay,
So
and
so
units is
Delphi, the what we have Delphi, and there is Wildband Delphi. This planning poker actually have inherited from these two techniques,
okay.
right? Yeah.
Thank you.
All right. Okay, let's go ahead and talk about the next one. What is an empirical process? Who wants to talk about this?
Empirical process is the learning from, this means the what is the learning or the experience you had, and the outcome is not fixed. We learn as we go ahead or progresses in our project or the product development cycle.
Okay. Not the good answer or best answer. Anyone?
Empirical process basically talks about learning from the experience. So when it comes through experience, why we use empirical process in Scrum is like the experience of the so for that only we have to take the experience guys, and if they have the knowledge, acquired knowledge with them, so maybe they can explore with that experience and they can learn further.
Okay. What are the three pillars of empirical process control?
Transparency, inspection, and
Adopt
adaptation.
and
Yeah, you need to always mention that. Means if you expect your interviewer will ask and pinpoint you why you are not talking about that, you don't expect all interviewer will ask. If you have not mentioned them in your first answer, your interviewer will assume you don't know that. Right? So an empirical process control that learns from itself over time using data. There are three pillars of any empirical process control: transparency, inspection, and adaptations. And if you just say transparency, inspection, and adaptations, then also you are not answering a good answer. You may need to answer transparency means progress of the work and the team is visible to everyone. Inspection means there are frequent opportunities to review the current state of the work. Adoption means the team makes changes based on what was learned through transparency and inspection. Right?
Okay.
All right. What is deep product backlog? What do you mean by deep product backlog?
DEEP is the acronym for detailed estimation,
Detailed appropriately.
detailed
Then
appropriately, estimated accurately, and it skipped out of my mind. E and P again. Sorry.
okay, do you know dry water? What is
Ice?
dry water? Dry water. Ice is ice. It's not water.
No.
No. Okay. Can you tell me something? Vegetarian chicken.
No.
What is
Vegetarian
this?
chicken.
Have you
Mhm.
heard about the term called oxymoron?
Yes, it's like two things which never happens, like night and day at the same point of time.
Right. And what you mentioned, estimated accurately. You are saying estimate,
Mhm.
and again you saying accurate. Right? Never use
Yes.
those two terms together. Estimate is always an estimate. It cannot be accurate.
Emergent, it is,
Yes.
yeah, emergent.
Yeah. So estimated,
Emergent.
emergent, and prioritize.
Prioritized.
And also mention this was actually formed by a person named Roman Pichler. Right? All right. Let's talk about PDCA. What do you know about PDCA?
Plan to check act.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you. Our HR will
I
get back
get
to
it.
you.
Okay. So explain.
Explain. Need to give
Yeah,
some
I'll do.
explanation.
Yeah, yeah. I'm thinking about how. So plan.
Yeah, these
Plan
all are
your
the
work.
different stages of our software development life cycle.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah,
So
in
you
the
need to
planning.
see. I know that every one of you understand that, but whenever you are explaining, you can give details of that. So you can mention plan. Let me take a different color. This is so light. Where is the color? So we can have plan, do, check, adjust. This is a improvement cycle of work where we do planning. In our Scrum, we follow a PDCA cycle. We do a planning by doing a sprint planning, then we execute within our sprint, and then we review it during means we inspect during review and retrospect. That is what we do. Check, we create action items to adjust the improvement opportunity, that is act, and that cycle we continuously do, and then we start our another sprint and we follow the same cycle. This is what PDCA cycle, right? Are we clear? Okay, I'll assume yes. We'll go to the next one. What is sprint hardening? Why and when it is done?
Sprint hardening.
Yeah, hardening sprint. Search in Google. You'll get something about hardening sprint. Just type HARD hardening. See, hardening sprint is coming up over here. So what is hardening sprint?
For me, some cafe names is coming. It's hardening sprint. Scrum means. A hardening sprint is defined as a sprint focused on catching up on technical test depth and readying a Scrum product release.
Okay, anyone else? See, if you just answer these in just one liner, I don't think that will go very well.
Okay.
Right, but try to give it a different way. See, hardening sprint, you can mention that, okay, as of now, the hardening sprint is not very, what I'll say, adopted in a positive way for the agile teams, because earlier when the organizations were transitioning from waterfall to agile and they still had that waterfall mindset, they used to do one sprint for doing the testing integrations from multiple teams, and they used to do every 3 sprint or 4 sprint. But as of now, that is not, I don't think that's a good approach to me, because whenever we work on agile, we always try to build a quality within the development. So that is build the integrity in or build the quality in. So we don't need to have a separate testing. We used to test that in multiple steps within our sprint during our review, demonstrations, and integration. That happens in a proper cadence and in a proper frequency. It does not need a dedicated sprint for doing the hardening. Now, that is the when we started, it was used to call as a hardening sprint. But now, if you talk about the scaled agile, they have a dedicated sprint after every 4 sprint, but that is not for hardening. That is for innovations and planning. So for the purpose of doing the testing, I don't think that is required. And few organizations, they still into that waterfall mindset, they do that, but that's not a good idea. Right? Are we clear? Yes? Okay. Who updates the release burn down?
The product owner updates the release burn down.
Okay. Anyone else? See, this is how your release burn down comes up. normally you can mention your when you do a release planning, your release planning comes up something like this, and based on the release planning you define that in sprint 1 we have this much, and what is our total. You may identify that we will be having let's say over here I have some 30 story point, I have 30 story point. In that way, up to 6 sprints you may have 180 story points, right? So now this 180 story point you need to burn in 6 sprints. At the end of every sprints you burn it out and it will come down. Now you may mention nowadays we don't need any specific person to burn it out, because all are using tools like Jira or Rally, where this burn down come up automatically. But even if you are doing a manual activity, product owner ideally will prefer, there is no role defined in any Scrum book or Scrum guide, but this is the release planning is also not part of Scrum, but it's widely adopted in the Agile community, and we have observed it's updated by product owner in case we are doing it manually. Are we clear? So if I look into the different levels of planning, as you can see, we have visions, roadmap, then release planning. Over here, once you have planned your release, you go a sprint planning, and then we go for a daily stand-up. All right, okay. Who updates the sprint burn down?
The team.
During the daily scrum call, the scrum master keeps an eye on the sprint burn down chart, and along with the team it is being discussed, and it's not needed to be updated manually, but it's been reviewed along with the team by the scrum master during the daily scrum meeting, to know how much time is remaining and how much work is still need to be completed during the sprint.
Right. So you can mention again, as of now in the modern day, the Agile is controlled by a tools like Rally, Jira, version 1 or TFS, where we don't need to manually update the burn down for a sprint, even it is sprint burn down. But we need to do some activity so that the burn down chart can reflect properly. That is changing the remaining amount of work that has to be done every day, and the team does that. So every day we have a practice before going home, they will update the tasks they have worked for the day, about how many works is remaining as of that point of time, and based on that, when the remaining amount of number gets reduced, the burn down chart automatically get populated. So you may need to answer it in like this, right? All right, let's go for the next question. What all Agile engineering practices you know, and what all practices you have used? Engineering practices.
Pair programming,
Okay.
TDD, test-driven development.
Okay. Anyone else? See, these are all the good engineering practices which is came from XP or extreme programming. So over here you can see you may be using couple of them knowingly or unknowingly. Continuous integration, pair programming, refactoring, or you design simply, you do small releases, you have test driven development, you maintain a coding standard. So you may be using, you may mention, okay, we do a refactoring, this is one of them. Pair programming also you can mention. Continuous integrations you can mention our team is doing. and you need to prepare something about refactoring, something about continuous integration, something about test driven development, all those, right? Okay, I'll just clear this off. Have you ever tried to influence your product owner? If yes, please provide any instance. Anyone?
I would like to give it a try because, as per my understanding, we do not influence the product owner. It always has
Exactly.
to be
Great.
a communication.
Yes. So you will be answering it in that way, that I'll not be using the term as influence. As we work as a team, we always try to help each other. And as a Scrum Master, I have coached the product owner on understanding how to write a better user story or how to do a better prioritization. But ultimately, it's mm, ultimately it will be mm, prioritize, or the ownerships will be with a product owner only. But few areas we as a Scrum Master, we coach or train the product owner to do the right thing in the right way.
Okay.
Right? Okay. All right. Okay, this is one question. How many times you have achieved your release target?
All the times. So means when we say release targets, whatever is committed in that sprint, in that release.
Come again,
Uh,
please.
no, no, when you say release target, whatever whatever is targeted in that release, if there is a 50 stories targeted for that release, all
Mhm.
50 is delivered. That is what release target will be, right?
Mhm. How many times you have achieved your release target? I need to have a little better answer.
But providing any number here, will it work when, I mean,
You
no
you
one have
you
a,
are you are the right person to answer that. The question may be wrong. You need to
yeah.
answer it in that way. So every time you may not get the right answer, right question. So
Yeah, I mean,
questions may
if
be tricky.
it's always not possible to, I mean, follow the, I mean, to match the release target. So yes, quite a few times we have missed to meet our release targets, but yes, most of the time we have provided, I mean, we had succeeded in that.
Right. I need a good answer. So let's look into the release planning. This is what you have, the release planning. So the good answer is always how many times you have achieved your release target. You may mention 100% time I have achieved my release target, and you will also be able to really achieve 100% release target if you follow Agile, because whatever we do at the time of release planning, it's not a one-time planning. Our release planning in terms of Agile has to be updated based on the end of every sprint. So what you have planned at the sprint one for the next 6 sprint, at the end of sprint, the release will be updated based on the lesson learned, recent market trend, remaining amount of work with the updated priority. So we are working on a dynamic release plan. So every time, whenever we are working on, we always meet the target. Right? You're getting my point? Because we do early inspection. Whenever we think that we are deviating, we adjust our release plan. We remove unwanted items from the release. Now, how many times we meet our release target, that's question very much fit into a waterfall way of working. You're getting my point?
Yeah.
Now you need to find out how politely you can answer it. All right, what are spikes?
Spike or
I
R&D kind of stories
Okay.
where we do R&D for any kind of features or functionalities. So we create
Hmm.
spike stories for it.
Yeah, research
uh,
and any kind of research and analysis work that you do are all come as a spike. Spikes are of two types. Technical spike, where you do technical analysis, technical research, and another is a functional spike where product owner primarily analyze the possible functionality, analyze the possible risk for that functionality or feasibility study. That is where the functional spikes are. Right?
Yeah. Functionality.
All
Okay.
right. Which role in Scrum is very important according to you and why?
All the roles
So
are important because each role has their own uh, need for the team.
Which
So
role in Scrum is very important according to you and why?
So if I have got this question, definitely I would have put it across in a different way. So all, as Mangesh has clearly mentioned, all roles are important in the Scrum. But for me, being the Scrum Master, I find it Scrum Master role very important to uh, to for the team and for the organization itself, to follow the scrum practices. And since we are in a environment where a lot of organization claims that they are agile, but they still follow in the hybrid environment, and not having a scrum master, the direction of the organization into reaching to a agile maturity level will always be deviated. And so that is the one reason, and I can give a couple of more reasons on the same. But I would highlight it, without a scrum master, it would be like without the soul, the team will not be able to work in a right direction. They would not be having a coach to tell them what is the right practice, how to follow a particular event, or how a scrum framework can be done accurately in the organization as well as within the team.
All right. So what we will be talking about over here is, let's talk about a car engine, because which produce energy. And if you talk about like which part is most important in the car engine, you may find out that something is very important. But do you think that with only that component the engine will work? Which part is more important in a car? All the parts are important. Without any single part, the car will not run. So the importance of the presence of all the role is there. If they ask that do you think scrum master role is important or not, then you will emphasize on the scrum master role why it is important. But if they talked about comparing the importance, comparing the importance between these all role, you should not be saying this is important and that is not important, because you are the scrum master. You need to bring everyone together, and that will some way, if you, because it's all depends on the trainer's psychology, what they wants to hear. And if you just focus on scrum master, and the trainer is actually sorry, the interviewer is actually kind of a technical mindset, they may think, okay, you think too much of on the scrum masters is this, scrum master is that. You are not looking about the execution, which is the more critical part. Without a scrum master, we were surviving for last 6 months. Now, can we survive with only Scrum Master, and Scrum Master can deliver that, or Scrum Master and Product Owner, will they deliver that, or only Scrum Master and developer, can we deliver that? I can see, if I have three combinations over here, let me just draw this. I have Scrum Master, Product Owner, and developer. Then another combination, Scrum Master, Product Owner, and developer. And then another combination, Scrum Master, Product Owner, and developer. Now, if I talk about delivery, I can make one combination, we eliminate the developer. We can make another combination, we can eliminate the product owner, and we can make another combination, something like this. So which combination do you think they will deliver some software, or they will deliver something? Because for me, delivery is more important for any organization. Agile is just to support them. So you always need to support the agility and the Scrum, all those areas, but don't mention that Scrum Master is important than PO or developer, because without a Scrum Master, the team with PO and developer, they can develop it. So you, in this case, the diplomatic answer will be the presence of all those is important. You said Scrum Master is important. That is a fear of uh, identifying Scrum Master is not important. That's why you're emphasizing. You can do that, but you will start with all the roles are important. We cannot say this role is important, that role is important. Many times people think Scrum Master role is not important, but Scrum Master role is important in this reason what you have mentioned. Are we clear? All right.
Yes, very much.
All right, so let's talk about the next question. This one you start discussing with each other. Explain self-organization versus self-motivation. Try to think about that, and in 5 minutes, I'll just observe what you have discussed. All right, so I'll just quickly start the timer. Where is the timer? All right, your time starts now. I'll just minimize this a bit. Yeah.
Yeah. So I just Googled it with the terminology with self-organization. We all know it, but so it says the term self-organization refers to the process by which individuals organize their communal behavior to create a global order by interactions among themselves rather than through external intervention or instructions. In generalize, I would be just say it in one statement where self-organization means you don't have to be told what to be done. You know your day-to-day activities, and you are self-organized as a resource to the organization. Someone doesn't have to tell you what should be your next step. And when it comes to self motivation, it's it's how your mind is at peace, if I am saying it correctly. What is your thoughts, guys? Am I speaking on mute? Hello? Hello? Lopa, Magesh, Precious. Anyone on the call?
Yeah.
Yes,
Yeah,
yes,
so
Ankita,
what if,
I'm there. Today I'm into some problem. My son is not well and he's with me. He's crying, so most of the time I'm mute. I'm on being mute.
okay,
Yeah.
okay, no problem. I just thought I got a network issue.
For me, the self-organization is the team member should not be more of where he needs to be reminded on everything, right? So he is self-organized, so he take initiatives, so he should not be reminded for each and everything. So that is what self-organization is, and he keeps himself motivated. So people who are more experienced, they keep themselves motivated, and um, they don't look for motivation.
Mm-hmm.
That is what I think. There's a difference between both self-organization and self-motivation.
Okay, understood.
Anybody else?
Yes. I don't have much on it. I can add one thing like self-organized, agile definitely implies on resources being self-organized, then someone tells them what to be done next. Okay.
All right, everyone, what we
Yeah.
have
Yes.
identified.
Okay, so I can communicate on that. When it comes to self motivation, it is kind of our internal drive which let us know what we want to achieve or what we want to develop and how to we can keep moving forward. So, self motivation is the force that help us to push in a forward direction, and it definitely helps us when we wanted to quit something, and then we motivate ourselves, and we just thinks about that, okay, let's do one more time, and before the quit, that motivation definitely helps. And self organization is a best practice when even when it comes to agile, where the resource or the person who is working when it comes to product development, they do not have to be told what needs to be done. They are self organized into themselves, that they knows what is their day to day activities. No one it is not like that someone has to be always keep an eye on them. They by themselves is so much organized that they know what is their roles and responsibility, the tasks they have to be carried out by them. They make themselves accountable, and they is not a one like in normal industrial practice, a manager always have to be aware what is the resources doing. But when it comes to a self organized person, he or she is aware what is their day to day responsibility, and they make themselves aware, and they follow the no, they do not have
Right.
to follow, but nobody has to guide them what needs to be done next.
Yeah, so you can start with something like self-organization is giving the team empowerment to take their own decision and eliminating command and control. And motivation is something to give them that intention or they should initiate that intention within them to become self-organized. Right now you can explain that, okay, motivation is something, why they will do something, how we will make them the work they are doing interesting, or how we can make them work as a team, what motivates them to work in a way that Agile supports. Self-organization is how they will be able to do their work, how they will be able to take their own decisions, how they will to plan their work, how they will decide uh, how to turn the committed work into a potential shippable product by themselves. Right? Are we clear? Now the next question comes up in the same line. How can you keep motivating your team?
How can you keep motivating your team?
Yeah, what will be few approaches you may want to apply to keep them motivated?
Agile games. We can one thing uh, recognize the work, uh, appreciate the teamwork whenever we have to, and it's not always work. So we have to bring in some fun activities, play agile games, like those things. I think the team can keep, we can keep them motivated.
Your answer is not having the confidence. Answer with
Mhm.
confidence. Right?
Okay.
Because
Um,
when you are answering, indirectly it seems like you are asking, you have a doubt whether your answer is right or wrong. You're getting my point? So that your voice should be come up in a very uh,
Bold.
bold and confident. It should sound
No.
confident.
No. Okay. Sure. Yeah. Understood.
All right. Any other answers?
yes, you can introduce like best team member for the month or for the week, and maybe introduce like a coupon attached to it. That way it can keep motivating them to work on the story point faster so they can target to win that prize.
Okay. Yeah, recognition is one of them. Then there are multiple other ways all to keep them motivated, because if you just ask them to do work, don't show them what results they are producing, they may not get motivated. If you try to show them this is the vision, what you are working, this is contributing this product, these are the user of the product, what you have built, that is solving this problem from this entire country, those are the motivational factor, they will get motivated. Rewards recognitions normally we always prefer, but not in a monetary term. You also tell them, okay, sprint of man of the sprint or person of the sprint, or sometimes you say that retrospections thanks to others, that will also help them motivated. Bring up some fun games so that they can also motivated along with them. Take them to lunch or dinner, that will also some areas they may get motivated, and they will be some at some point of time they will be somewhere more engaged, they will not get bored, right? So this is one of the area, and show them their contribution, recognize their work, right? Give them proper credit. You're getting my point, what I'm talking about? Yes or no?
Yeah, we can also say that at the
Yes.
end of the sprint, I like to do a shout out.
Yeah,
So my team members do it for the work well done. So that's something I do it in and every end of the sprint.
right. Definitely that can one of the good area. Retrospections, you can take the leverage of retrospection, and you can use some fun games, recognize them, all those area can be used very well. Right, everyone? Any other points anyone wants to add?
No.
All right. Let's talk about the next question, which is somehow related to this one. Do you believe in rewards and recognition system is good for agile project? It's on the same term. You can mention that, yeah, rewards and recognition is good, but not on a monetary term. Otherwise, their key intention will change from delivery to get that monetary benefit. So that's why in Agile, we don't advocate to go for monetary benefit as a reward and recognition. Right? Are we clear, everyone? All right, I'll
Yes.
assume yes. Okay, I think we talked about this conflict. How do you resolve conflicts within your Scrum team? We already
Yesterday we
talked on,
spoke
so yeah,
about communication or understanding the root cause. So we spoke about this yesterday.
yeah. So anyone wants to repeat what we have talked yesterday?
Okay, I'll go, or if someone wants to go ahead.
Go, I'll
Okay,
go after you.
Yeah, Precious, please go ahead.
So how do you resolve conflict? Okay, first of all, I will have to listen to both sides. First of all, to know the root cause of that problem, that conflict. And when I listen to both sides, we'll have to come to an agreement, like, okay, this is not going to happen. This is what we're going to be doing henceforth. If I'm able to reconcile them, I won't just let them go that way. I'll have to keep revisiting them to know if the situation was resolved or they're still keeping the conflict among themselves. That's the approach I will use.
Right, okay. See, you will be talking what we have mentioned yesterday also on the same way, that okay, definitely conflict is something, is a very normal things, and few instance we encourage conflicts. The conflict has to be healthy. If the conflicts is going too personal or taking them to the negative direction, in that case I'll try to resolve. Otherwise, there are few conflicts, if that happens, that encourage them to discuss, encourage them to talk about, justify about why they think so, and that may surface out many unknowns. So that's why in few instances we encourage conflicts in a kind of a healthy conflicts. Now if the conflicts is actually going in a negative directions, always as a scrum master I'll try to talk with that person one-on-one between both the conflicting parties and try to understand the reason behind that conflict. And later I will talk with both of them and try to make them understand that they have one common goal. That's our sprint goal. Both your approach are to meet the same goal. Maybe the approach is different. Then we will talk about what is our working agreement, that even your approach is not coincide with the all team members approach. You should respect others. So I understand both the approach are correct, but why we are going into your approach or my approach? Let's have the team decide. All of you can discuss and find out which approach will be better, and this is what we agreed on. We should respect each other, so have that respect. Both of you are doing for the good reason. So that's one of the area. If there is personal conflict as a scrum master, you may need to be very friendly with them. So if it is possible, they can share their reason of the personal conflict. That also you can try to resolve up to certain extent, but you cannot resolve all personal conflict uh, at your own. So you may need to find out that if you need to bring in HR somewhere, if the personal conflicts is there, or somehow it's all depends on what is the nature of the conflict, and based on that I'll take an impromptu decision. Sometimes I will discuss with my managers who have more experience, give the interviewer little value, that I'll talk with my managers or seniors who have more experience on the situations that I might not have faced, and I will be taking their suggestions and apply. Right? All right.
Okay.
How many teams do you handle?
I handle two teams, members of 8 in each, and with that, we yesterday also we discussed this question, where if when we are starting the sprint, and do they have a dependency? So, as per I could say, there could be two answers. One, if I'm saying that the team doesn't have a dependencies, and accordingly one start the sprint on Monday, the other team starts the sprint on Tuesday. And the second, if I'm saying the team is having a dependencies, so but still going with the different days of execution, but and how the release is happening, or once a team is completed, how we are going ahead with the demo. So if the demo or the release is, we do it after the sprint is completed, and right, that helps as a scrum master for me to be available to both the teams.
All right. Yeah. Any other views? Any other points?
Yes, Niladri, I have some points.
Mhm.
Yesterday also we discussed about it, but the thing is, we work for the same product, and even I have teams. I'm currently working with two teams, and both the teams we have at the sprint planning at the same day, because our sprint durations are also similar. So, I mean, the first day of the sprint, the planning and the reviews and retros were very hectic for us. So the
Mhm.
first half, if we are dedicated for the first team, so one team, and for the second half, we have decided to go with the second team. Um, so it's not like we have different sprint days. So our sprints are also started the same day. So practically, it's really hectic for us. But this is what happening.
Yes. So, if you have experienced working with multiple teams, you mentioned that. If you have not experienced with that, just mention one team, because the cross questions may come up. How do you manage your time uh, for daily stand up, for sprint review, for sprint retrospective, for sprint planning? If some point of time there is an escalations happening, and how do you focus on the other team? That kind of questions may come up. So if you really have experience, you mention that. Otherwise, always mention that one team. So in the same context, if we talk about what is the appropriate team member according to you, a Scrum Master should handle or a Scrum team should have?
There is nothing mentioned as appropriate in the Scrum team, but it is
No,
recommendable
it's
with
clearly mentioned in Scrum Guide.
Scrum Guide it is
10,
there. Yes.
10 or less than that,
Yeah.
not more
Anything
than
between
10
3
in.
to 9.
No, in Scrum Guide, based on the recent Scrum Guide, it's 10 or less. So definitely you can mention, give it a practical touch on that you can mention based on the Scrum Guide, it says somewhere around 10, but in practically what we have seen that at some point of time we have 12 members or 13 members as well, because it practically not possible to eliminate and go as per the book. Base, as we are working in a framework, we try to go around the values and principles and follow the max we do. So to me, the best sprint team size is 10 or less, maybe up to 5 members or 5 to 10. 3 members also we have observed, it's agile or scrum is become an overhead, but I also have experienced a team of 12 member as well. So something like that you can mention. All right. Okay. Have you worked on scaling Scrum? If yes, which framework you have used?
I haven't.
You mentioned no. That's perfectly fine.
Okay.
All right. Okay. So if you have not used, you can simply say no. Otherwise, if you say yes, which framework, and then they may go in deep dive into that framework. What is
So
SOS? Yeah.
scaling
Yeah.
frame Scrum is Okay, can you please name one or two? Is it we are talking about safe or something like that?
Yeah, SAFe is one. There are multiple different scaled agile framework. So SAFe is one of them. You have Nexus, that is from scrum.org. There is Scrum at Scale. There is Discipline Agile Delivery. There is large scale Scrum. There is many people use Spotify as a scaling agile as well.
Okay, so which is the mostly used in the organization apart
SAFe.
from safe?
Apart from SAFe, they use a combination of SAFe and Spotify. Few organizations they use Spotify. Uh, a mid-scale organization they use Nexus.
Okay.
Lace and DAD, those are still in use but not that popular.
Okay.
All right. What is SOS? What you do in that when you do SOS? Is it a time box ceremony?
This SOS is Scrum of Scrums, right?
Yes.
Okay. Uh, I'll take a minute to recall or frame a statement.
Okay.
Meanwhile, if someone wants to go ahead.
Yeah. Anyone else? No one else seems like interested.
Uh, and actually, Niladri, today I am into some kind of problem. So my son with me and he's not well, he's crying. So most of the time I'm unable to
Okay.
speak.
Okay.
SOS Scrum of
Scrum
Scrum
of
here. Yeah, here all the Scrum Masters. I mean, if we have different teams, different Scrum teams, so this meeting is for those to coordinate among those Scrum teams. So basically, one representative from each team joins this meeting. Here
Mhm.
we discuss about all the impediments, dependencies, the best practices, any kind of escalations, any kind of help needed. So all these topics we discuss here. And we do basically we do is our scrum meetings weekly once here. And
Mhm.
yes, definitely it's a time box ceremony again.
Okay. All right. Ankita, are you ready?
Lupa has covered everything and provided a very good answer.
All right. Yeah. Yeah. So everyone, you understand that that is what is SOS is, right? Anyone have something that you want to add on top of that? You can talk about definitely. Otherwise, we'll go to the next question. All right. Why teams in Scrum needs to be cross-functional? What if they are not cross-functional?
The teams in Scrum uh, need to be cross functional. It's not compulsory, it is mentioned in the guide, but it is the best thing, best practices which we are doing in the Scrum framework, where if a team is cross functional, it helps the product delivery much faster, and with that there is a very less dependencies on different team, or like if we have a separate person working is aware about the development and he is not aware about how the testing can be done, how a quality is can be improved, or if the same person can do both the development and the testing, it helps it reduces the dependency on going to different people for the solution, and it definitely helps on achieving the sprint goal, and result ending up with reaching achieving the product goal as well.
Okay. All right. Anyone else? See, cross-functional team, whenever we talk about Scrum team, the Scrum team has to be cross-functional. If the team is not cross-functional, you will be introducing mini waterfall. What is cross-functional? In traditional way, We used to have team like this. Like this is my, for an example, .NET development team, and we have multiple people over there. Then we used to have a database team, and where we have multiple team members over there. Now we have a QA team. That is what we used to have. So now, earlier what used to happen, so let's assume these are the three skill sets each team have. All those team, they have their own department, their own managers. That used to happen. And if one work came up, they first go into .NET. The entire work they used to do the .NET development, means some .NET development, then it is used to go for the database, or parallelly, and then it is used to go to QA, and finally it was delivered. And it may takes kind of 1 year or something. But in Agile, they says form a team that's cross-functional. So create uh, team something like this. You create one team where all the skill sets are there. This is my team A. Then I will be creating another team where I will be having all those skill set. This is my team B and team C. So whenever one work will be come up, that chunk of work can be completed entirely by team A. This is what the cross functionality is. Are we clear?
Yes.
And this is what cross functional team is, and you need to mention it in this way whenever you are going for an interview. If possible, draw it something like that, or draw in the board. That will show you how confident you are on your answer and how detailed knowledge you have. All right, let's go for the next questions. Explain your daily activities you do as a Scrum Master.
My daily activities come as soon as I log in. I check my calendar and plan my day accordingly. And the day definitely gets started with the daily Scrum calls, and which is mostly 15 and 20 minutes, depending upon the time allotted for the in the organization. Post that, once the daily Scrum call is completed, if there is open topics and any action which was remaining from the followed days, and if there is any conflict that needs to be dissolved, so I get into those calls and try to get a resolution on those meeting itself. And post those, I work on Scrum metrics, where be it on the product backlog refinement, or any other maybe defect leakage or anything which is required on a day-to-day delivery. Or if there is any Excel reports which is being delivered by my organization, I work on those. Apart from that, it also gets into a call with the product owner if there is any user story which is because of which the sprint might not be able to complete, or is there any risk or impediments which is being highlighted that could impact the entire sprint goal. I highlight the same to the product owner, get into the call with the product owner, understand where I can help him, or how we can if there is a scope creep, how without changing the scope of the sprint, how we can work with the best interest of the team. So this is mostly my day comprises of.
All right. And every time you also mention, whenever you're talking about the day, you can also mention that all of my days are not same. As for an example, the first day I am very much occupied for their capacity planning, initial sprint refinement and sprint planning. On the last day, I am very much occupied on sprint review, sprint retrospection, sprint closer, and all those activities. Rest of the days, you can mention something like this.
Yes.
All right. Next question. Explain agile principle based on manifesto. This is a repetitive question, so we are not going into that, but I think you will be able to answer it as we discussed yesterday. All right, explain sprint planning. Okay, these are the questions we don't want to go into the details of answering now. I'm assuming that you understand the step, because that we already talked about in our stage 1 about sprint planning. Just go to that video and identify the steps, and during the answer summarize that what is sprint planning. Sprint planning is something, identify the capacity of the team and pick the top stories from the backlog, top priority stories, and plan for the sprint where all the developer combinedly make an mutual commitment and form a sprint goal. We do a sprint planning and get two output. One is your sprint goal, another is our sprint backlog, and the team start working on the sprint. Ideally, it's for 2 to 3 weeks, and at the end of the sprint, we demonstrate what we committed during the sprint planning that we have completed at the end of the sprint. But the sprint planning is something like this. So you can explain what exactly the sprint planning is. Now they may go into a deep dive and detailed questionings about that, right? Similarly, so the rest of all those, explain sprint review, explain sprint retrospective, explain daily stand-up meeting, you need to prepare about that, right? Are we clear? All right, I'll assume
Yes.
yes. So we will not be taking further from here. From tomorrow
Hi.
onwards. Hello. Yeah,
What
so
was the
we
question? 82?
82 is a scenario based questions. We'll go into scenario based questions from tomorrow. There will be multiple scenarios. You can have a quick look of all those scenarios. What if as Scrum Master you are not able to attend a daily stand-up meeting? So do you, okay, we can do that. This one is not that scenario based. Let's talk about this. What if as a Scrum Master you are not able to attend a daily stand-up meeting? So do you think daily stand-up should happen or not happen, or team should postpone so that you can attend? Yeah, we can have this
So,
question.
for daily Scrum meeting, the Scrum Master is not mandatory or accountable. It is led by the developers, the development team. I have a question for in 2020 guide. It is the developer or it's the development? What is
Developers.
the recent developers? Okay, so it is led by the developers, and if a scrum master, it's a very good practice that scrum master is there in the dsm calls, because it helps them, the team, to focus on only on the topics which is important to be discussed on the user stories and the impediments they have identified on while they were working, and it to be kept the entire DSM time box with 15 minutes time frame. If I am not able to join the meeting, this DSM should continue, and it should not be postponed or cancelled because of SM not available.
Exactly. Yeah, that's a perfect answer. All right. So any other persons who wants to give a different opinion, or if you have anything differently you want to share?
I mean, can I say that as a Scrum Master, like there are certain instances that I'm not able to join the daily Scrum, but what I do is I facilitate the meeting to my developers, and they can carry on with it. But what I also ask them if they can record that daily Scrum, and then later on I can have a look. So that helps sometimes.
No, normally we don't record daily stand-up. Why we don't record? Because daily stand-up is not something, a meeting, or not something to be referred back later. This is a quick synchronizations between the team.
Okay.
Right? Yeah. All right. Okay. Let's talk about the next question. What is DOR? Who wants to talk about this? DOR.
DOR is a checklist which speaks about the definition of ready. And when we are talking about definition of ready, so basically before taking any story, user story to our sprint, so that story must satisfy the DOR checklist. There are few examples are like the user story must satisfy the invest criteria, and definitely there will be acceptance criteria defined there, and there will be some performance criteria is also defined there. And yes, some of the things, and yes, these all are the few of the checklist if I can remember right now.
Okay. Any other views? Anyone?
Like she said, these are just certain checklist criteria, like the acceptance criteria and invest criteria that a user story needs to fulfill first before the team can be able to commit to that user story.
Okay. Definition of ready, you mentioned it clearly. So this is actually a policy for the team to maintain a quality standard, what they will be working on and what they will not be working on. So how do they define? So to have a common consensus and to resolve any kind of conflicts, they define a list of criteria and they follow all those criterias whenever they want to mark a story as ready or not. Right? Are we clear?
Yes.
Definition of ready, right? Any questions anyone have about definition of ready? All right. So the definition of ready, as you can see, this is a set of criteria that user story must meet to be pulled into the sprint for development and will help improve velocity, produce high quality result and deliver value early. If we talk about little more, these are the example of your definition of ready for user story. The value of the story to the user is stated clearly. Acceptance criteria have been identified. Dependencies are listed. The development team has enough information to size the story. Right? Are we clear?
Yes.
All right. And these are the different some other example. Okay. How do you decide your baseline for your estimation? What is your approach to decide the baseline of your estimation?
Can we read the different example for DOR just for a second?
Okay.
Price by product owner. Okay, so it is here also we are talking about, we can give a example of deep estimable sufficiently a task are assigned. Can we add that
Yes.
deep acronym?
Yeah, you can, but deep acronym is not assigned with single user story, that assigned with your uh, backlog. And
Yes.
definition of ready is applied with one story.
Okay. Okay. Thank you.
Right? Yeah. All right. Okay. So let's talk about the next question. How do you decide your baseline for your estimation?
A relative sizing, with the help of a relative sizing. And we do that by giving the team an example of a different work. I'm not sure how I can put it across.
Are we
When you
talking
do
about
story
the
point estimation for relative sizing, if you don't have anything already estimated, you may need to do a relative uh, some baseline so that you can start doing the relative sizing, right?
so we are talking about the reference here, how to get the reference?
how to get, no, how do you define your baseline story? That is what we are talking about.
Okay.
So baseline story, you can mention always that when we do a story point estimation for the first time, we first thing what we do, we identify what are the stories we have, and then we select the smallest story and estimate it as 2 and make term that as our um, baseline. So that is what our baseline story baselining is. So story baselining is identifying the smallest one and estimate it as 2. Are we clear?
Identifying the smallest one and estimating.
Is decide the smallest one and estimate it as 2 story point.
Okay, okay.
All right. Okay. So let's talk about the next one. What do we have? So this is what the baselining is. As you can see, this is something you have. You need to choose a baseline story. That is your first activity. You will assign points to it. So we have assigned 2 points to the smallest one, and then we'll size the rest of the stories by comparing them to the baseline. Are we clear? All right.
Yes.
What is a backlog health and who manages it?
Backlog health is defined how many product backlog item is has been groomed, and how many are remaining. So if our numbers is always less or nearer to zero, that means our backlog health is good. And mostly backlog health is managed by a product owner, or you can say the product backlog item is accountable is product owner.
Okay, but how do you define? So let's assume you have 25 story points in your backlog. So how healthy
Hmm.
your backlog is?
So if it's groomed and all the user stories have been assigned the story points,
I'm saying
and
there are few stories are estimated and the number is 25 story point is right now in refined state. So what is your
uh, uh,
backlog health?
with reference to how many, like 100, 150, or 26, what is the reference
How,
it is?
how do you take the reference? Who will give
Total
you the reference?
total product backlog
There,
item.
there are 5,000 stories in our backlog. 25 story points are refined, means few stories, 5 or 6 stories are refined, and 25 story point is total right now in refined state. So what is your backlog health?
And this is a very bad backlog health.
Yeah. So bad is not
5,000.
measurable. Is it 1%? Is it 100%? It is 2%. You need to give the health.
20.
So it again depends on
Zero,
our
25
velocity.
divided by
Or all
5,000
or
then.
let's
Uh,
assume this way. There are 30 stories in your backlog and you have 30 story points in your backlog. How healthy your backlog is?
30 stories in the backlog, and
30 story points in backlog.
okay.
Okay, anyone else want to give it a try?
yes, so I will be trying it. Backlog health, basically it speaks about how healthy our backlog is. I mean, in our how many stories are groomed at a given point of time. Suppose our velocity for the current sprint, I mean, the average velocity is 20.
Mhm.
So basically, we have to maintain. There is no as such no standards or nothing written in the Scrum guide, but this is again a practice what industries follows, and again it differs.
Exactly. Yes.
Yeah,
So
so
that velocity term has to be come out, and that
yes,
will give you the reference that if you may mention that, okay, for us, the reference is twice of our velocity, or the reference is thrice of our velocity. So if it is twice of your velocity and your velocity is 20, so in that case you need to maintain 40 story points always in ready state. Are we clear?
Yes.
Yes.
Right now, if you have, let's say, 20 story point, that means you are 50% healthy. If you have 30 story points ready, you are 75% healthy. Anytime the health is below 90% is treated as a bad health. All right, okay, let's talk about the next question. What is sprint burn up chart?
Sprint burn down, we talk about amount of work remaining, and in sprint burn up, the amount of work completed.
Right, anything more you want to add here?
Mhm.
Sprint burn up we measure in story points. Sprint burn down we can measure it in story point or in effort hours as well, the remaining amount of efforts.
Okay.
Right, but burn up always goes in story point. So the next question, what is sprint burn down chart? I believe you understand it, right? We already talked about that.
Yes.
So what will happen to the stories which are pending at the end of the sprint? What do you think? What should be the best approach?
uh, there are two things. It might go into the next sprint, or it might go to the product backlog items. So it depends on the priority. If that
Who will
user
decide
story
that?
is, product owner has a final say whether this user story which is pending is on high priority and has to be immediately taken up into the next sprint, or it has to go into the product backlog items.
All right, okay. Great. So Ankita, it seems like you are very much excited for give the final interview. Have you sent the profile to me for a mock interview?
Tomorrow I would be sending it. I
Okay.
thought let me make some changes, but I will send it as it is only.
All right. Okay. Okay. So this is the question. The answer is also there. Who should attend backlog grooming meeting?
Attention.
The entire
Love the
sprint
answer.
is to be attended.
See, backlog refinement meeting can be attended by anyone. Um, anyone in the Scrum team, but we always need to have product owner and developers are the key participants, where product owner will explain and developers will be identify and clarify their doubts and estimate, where Scrum Master's presence is there to facilitate and uh, have the team run the refinement or grooming session in an effective way. So the intention, whenever we talk about backlog refinement, the intention of product backlog refinement is to identify and create new stories, to add details to existing stories, to split large stories into right size stories, to validate and update ordering, to prepare for the sprint planning, and to prepare for release and release planning. Backlog refinement is continuous, and refinement is about stories. Stakeholders help the product owner create the vision, which is then translated into stories, and lead technical team members, architects, or lead test members sometimes are helpful in breaking down stories and identifying gaps and dependencies for which the product owner might need help identifying. And it's a good practice to gather external inputs regularly. Are we clear about backlog refinement? Who will attending and what exactly we do?
Yes.
All right. Is the backlog grooming meeting is time boxed? Yes or no? When and how it should happen? And if you want to give some little more details.
So backlog grooming meeting is not time boxed. It happens before the sprint planning session, and how it should happen in the backlog refinement meeting. Before that, the entire developers should be aware about the user stories, and the sprint goal is needs to be identified. Once the sprint goal is identified, the team starts work on estimating the user stories. It is usually done by the with the help of a planning poker technique.
All right, anyone else wants to answer this?
Yes. Backlog grooming meeting is very much time boxed, so it should not consume more than 10% effort of the entire team.
Right.
And yeah, and when it how it happens, yes, it happens as I told. We are following a practice that every week, at least once, or whenever the team has some time. So again, it depends according to the backlog health. So how healthy our backlog is. So if the backlog health is falling down, I mean the trend, the percentage is coming down, so we as a team we can decide to have it, I mean maybe weekly twice sometimes. And if
Mhm.
those we can see the trend is fine and we are pretty much our health backlog health is very much stable, so sometimes we will just do for 1 hour in a
Right.
week.
And it's also not necessary to have before the sprint planning, because you
Yes.
don't refine for any specific sprint. You refine for future sprints. What you are refining today may be worked out by the team in the next sprint or next to next sprint, or maybe next to next to next sprint. Refinement is a continuous approach where you need to define a pattern that every Tuesday we'll do, or every Tuesday and Thursday we will do. You define a proper time. It's a time boxed event. Don't spend more than 1.5 hours or maximum 2 hours at one stretch. Otherwise, you will lose the momentum. It means you will lose actually the effectiveness of that refinement. Right? Are we clear?
Usually we go ahead before the sprint planning. It's not a kind of a loop. We can do
See,
it
you
as
you
and
don't
when.
you go before the sprint planning because you don't have any other option.
Hmm.
If you don't cook at home, you will have to order from outside. So if I say is when we order from outside, whenever we are hungry, but if you have properly cooked your food in proper time, then whenever you are hungry, you have the cooked food. You don't need to order from outside. So
Okay.
if you continuously maintain a pattern, whenever you will be hungry or at the time of lunch or dinner, the food will be ready, right? All right, so
Yes.
let's talk about the next question. Who creates product backlog?
Product owner creates a product backlog.
No.
Okay.
Anyone else? See, product backlog is an list of all the opportunities of work. It does not have only user story. It may have technical spikes. It may have bugs. It may have technical architectural work. It may have infrastructure work. Whatever the team needs to work on to make that product shippable. Now, product owner may create some items that goes into product backlog. The developer may create something. The service teams, they may send some request to that. The architect may create something, and all those goes into the product backlog. There is no one creates a product backlog. Product backlog is a list of all opportunities of work. In Jira or Rally, wherever all the list is visible, that screen we called as a product backlog. But product backlog is an opportunities of work where the team have all the works in priority order, and the team pick the opportunities from the top priority item and work on their sprint and over sprint over sprint. So it's not one person's responsibility to create the product backlog, but product owner has the ownerships of the product backlog and prioritize the items in product backlog. Are we clear?
Yes.
All right. So then what is the difference between product backlog and sprint backlog?
You move the items from product backlog to sprint backlog
Okay. Is
for the
that the
sprint.
only difference?
I mean,
Means
the
the
sprint
from sprint
backlog. Okay, go
item
ahead.
don't move from sprint backlog to product backlog?
If it's not done in that sprint, yes, it could go back.
Okay. So what's the difference? So
Product
you need to
backlog is
give the, yeah.
specific.
Yes. Go ahead.
The product backlog is specific to the goal of the product, and whereas when we talk about the sprint backlog, it is we are talking about the sprint goal in the particular sprint.
So
So
you
when
need
the
to make
list of,
multiple different areas. Product
yeah,
backlog is a long-lived opportunities of work. Sprint backlog is a short-lived commitment of work. Product backlog have a commitment to product goal. Sprint backlog have a commitment to sprint goal. Product backlog is owned by product owner. Sprint backlog owned by the developers. Sprint backlog where the work needed to be worked on and everyone execute the commitment work uh, as a sprint backlog, and finally it mm, as a output it provides a potentially shippable product. Sprint backlog is always a subset of the product backlog items, right?
yes.
Are we clear,
I have
everyone?
a
Yeah,
question. I have a
yeah.
question. Do you take interviews for someone, and for the organization? Does the people qualify that as per the criteria you inbound them?
I didn't get your question.
I mean, why I asked this question, because the answers you're putting it across, it's so good. If there is 100 candidates, if you are taking an interview, does anyone qualify the standards?
Mostly, yeah. So I didn't found. I found very few people they have answered, because we just give the mock interview. We'll see how the interview comes up, and you'll see how the result. Because when we'll take the interview, I'll also write it down. What are the answers you are giving wrong, and how it could be better. But see, whenever I take interview, because I understand everyone cannot answer it in the way I expect, but I observe the intention. I observe the behavior. I observe if the person have a willingness to learn. Because whenever I hire for my team, I know if he's working with me, I'll train him or her in such a way that person can work. But whenever I take interview, because few corporate ask me to take interview for them, and in that case, I give my genuine feedback that in a scale of 1 to 5, this person is having 2 points in Scrum fundamentals, 2 points on practical approach, or 3 points in Jira. In that way, I give my feedback, what my feeling is.
Mhm. So
Right?
does they qualify the interview, or does they get a job?
Yeah. See, few places what happen is they everywhere they have a benchmark that at least the rating has to be 3 to get shortlisted or go to the next round. Next round they go for HR or something. So definitely there are people who get that. There are good people who are experienced people who actually have worked on that, and they can answer it very well.
Okay.
Right? All right. Okay. Let's. Okay, these are all scenario based questions. We'll start all the scenarios from tomorrow, and we will take a pause over here. There are multiple scenario based questions, and let's see how much we can cover tomorrow. And that will be 93 numbers we will start from. All right, everyone.
Yes.
All
Yes.
right. Okay. Great. Then thank you. Thanks, everyone. We'll see you once again tomorrow. Till that time, have a wonderful day. Bye-bye.
Is tomorrow the last day of the class, or we're gonna go again
No,
next
no,
week?
we'll have Monday and Tuesday as well for mock interviews.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. Thank you. Thanks. Bye.
And Niladji,
Thank
one
you.
thing, this mock interview is not mandatory, right?
It's not mandatory. Whoever is willing to go for a mock interview, they can.
Okay, okay. But you will be sharing the recordings or videos, right?
Mock interview will not record.
Oh, okay. Okay, fine.
Yeah. All right. Okay. Great. Thank you. Thanks. Bye-bye.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.